là mấy hôm nữa anh mới về?
Anh tạo nhỏ xem thôi. Định đến cô các thì em đã nói với em rồi, chắc em nhớ anh lắm không? Anh nhớ em lắm.
Em nhớ anh lắm.
The morning sun filters through the dense forest canopy, casting dappled light on the rugged path where Lytutien and Dr. Phuong trek, the air thick with the scent of moss and earth. Tien adjusts her basket, her hands steady, her face a mix of determination and quiet hope, her thoughts on the Thursday pregnancy test she bought but hasn't yet used. Dr. Phuong walks ahead, her eyes sharp, scanning the undergrowth, her voice warm as she shares. Helping the poor who can't afford hospitals with folk remedies. Seeing them heal their smiles, that's my greatest joy. Tien glances at her, seeing the happiness in her eyes. I saw that joy in you when you said it, she says, her voice soft, inspired by Phuong's passion, her own heart lifting. That's why I wanted to join you today. I want to help even a little. Tien adds, her voice firm, the forest path winding deeper, the village's silence a distant memory. Dr. Phuong nods. You've got a good heart, Tien, she says, her tone encouraging, stopping to point at a plant. Look, here's a tree we need. Tien kneels beside her. What's this called? She asks, her voice curious. Her hands brushing the leaves, the plant's rough texture unfamiliar, her basket ready. This is Zoa, also called Tukan or Thou Can Long. Phuong explains, her voice steady, cutting a stem with a small knife, her movements precise. Tien tilts her head. I've seen it before but didn't know it was medicinal, she says, her voice tinged with wonder. The forest whispering around them, a quiet symphony. Phuong smiles. It's a precious herb, supports liver health, helps with cirrhosis, liver cancer, detoxing, lowering enzymes. It's a true enemy of liver disease, she says, her tone proud. Tien's eyes widen. It does so much, I had no idea, she says, her voice awed, helping Phuong gather the leaves, her hands careful, her basket slowly filling. Phuong nods. We use the stems and leaves, no roots for this one, she says, her voice factual, placing the cuttings in her own basket, the forest path stretching ahead. Let's go deeper, there might be more, Phuong says, her voice encouraging, leading the way, the forest growing denser, the air cooler, the sunlight more sparse. They walk in silence for a moment, the crunch of leaves underfoot the only sound. Tien's thoughts drifting to her conversation with Phuong days ago, her heart heavy. Phuong, about what we talked about last time. Tien starts, her voice hesitant, her hands tightening on her basket, her eyes on the path, her breath uneven. Phuong glances back. The test? Did you use it? She asks, her voice gentle, slowing her pace, her eyes kind, sensing Tien's uncertainty, her concern genuine. Tien nods. I bought the K Thursday, but I haven't checked yet, she admits, her voice barely above a whisper, her heart racing, the forest's quiet amplifying her fear. Phuong stops. Don't be sad, Tien, you're still young with a long future ahead, she says, her voice soothing, placing a hand on Tien's shoulder, her touch warm. I believe joy will come to you one day, Phuong adds, her voice firm, her eyes bright with hope. The forest path curving around a rocky outcrop, the air still. Tien manages a small smile. I hope so, I really want this, she says, her voice soft, her hands trembling slightly. The basket heavy within Zoa, her heart heavier. I'll help you, don't worry. I'll make sure you're cared for. Phuong says, her voice reassuring, turning to lead again, her steps steady, her presence a quiet strength. They reach a clearing. Here's another herb, Phuong says, kneeling beside a plant growing from a Kida rock crevice, her voice focused, her hands deft as she digs. What's this one? Tien asks, her voice curious, setting her basket down, her hands ready to help. The forest silence a quiet backdrop to their work. This is K Suong Kop, named for its use, good for joint pain, Phuong explains, her voice steady, carefully extracting the plant, its roots intact, her movements precise. Tien nods. The name fits its purpose, she says, her voice thoughtful, holding the plant as Phuong hands it to her. The basket growing heavier, their haul growing. There's just one here, let's look deeper, Phuong says, her voice determined, leading them further, the forest path narrowing, the air cooler, the sunlight fading. They find another plant. This is K Bon Bot, great for snake bites, Phuong says, her voice excited, cutting the leaves carefully, her hands steady, her basket filling. Tien's eyes light up. That's perfect for forest trips, we should always carry it, she says, her voice eager, helping Phuong gather the leaves, the forest whispering. Phuong nods. We only used the leaves for this one, she says, her voice factual, placing the cuttings in her basket, the stream nearby dry, the season too arid. Let's rest here, Phuong says, her voice tired, sitting on a rock, the forest quiet, the sun high, the heat pressing down, their baskets heavy with herbs. Tien sits beside her. Here, drink some water, she says, her voice kind, handing Phuong a bottle, the forest stillness a quiet contrast to their labor. Phuong takes it. Thanks, you drink too, it's hot out, she says, her voice grateful, sipping the water, the forest path stretching deeper. Their journey paused. It's hard work, but finding these herbs makes me happy. Phuong says, her voice soft, her eyes bright. The forest challenges a small price for her passion. Tien nods. I can see that, it's inspiring, she says, her voice warm. The forest's quiet a gentle embrace. Their shared purpose a quiet bond. The late afternoon sun casts a golden glow over the village as Seo Jack steps out of his car. The air warm, the scent of rice fields mingling with dust. His mother waiting at the gate. She rushes forward. "Jack, you're back!" she exclaims, her voice a mix of relief and joy, her eyes scanning his face, her hands trembling slightly, her smile wide. Jack smiles. "I wanted to surprise you, Mother," he says, his voice warm, embracing her. The weight of his business trip lifting, the village a quiet haven. She pulls back. "You're late, I was worried," she says, her voice tinged with concern, her eyes searching his, the village's silence a backdrop to their reunion. "I told you I'd be back today, sorry for the delay," Jack replies, his voice gentle, guiding her inside, the modest house welcoming, the air thick with the scent of dinner. She nods. "I haven't eaten, I wanted to wait for you," she says, her voice soft, her hands busy setting the table, the rice steaming, the village evening calm. Jack frowns. "It's late, you should have eaten," he says, his voice concerned, sitting at the table, his eyes on her, noticing her thinner frame, his worry growing. She waves him off. "I wanted us to eat together," she says, her voice firm, serving the rice, her hands steady, her love for her son a quiet force in the room. Jack sighs. "You look thinner, Mother, have you been sleeping?" he asks, his voice soft, his eyes searching hers, the village's quiet a heavy weight, his concern deep. She smiles faintly. "I'm fine, just worried about you," she says, her voice warm, sitting across from him, the candle on the table flickering, the room cozy. Jack nods. "The trip went well. I met successful entrepreneurs, signed a contract," he says, his voice proud, though his eyes linger on her, his worry lingering. Her eyes light up. "That's wonderful, Jack," she exclaims, her voice bright. The news a relief, the village's silence a quiet backdrop to their shared joy. Jack pulls out a gift. "I brought you yen sao, and some for Tien too," he says, his voice warm, placing the box on the table, his thoughts drifting to Tien. She takes it. Thank you, son, she says, her voice grateful, her hands trembling slightly. The gift a symbol of his care, her heart swelling with pride. Jack nods. I have gifts for Tien on the car. I'll see her this afternoon, he says, his voice soft, his longing for her clear, the village's quiet a gentle hum. She sighs. Tien came by while you were away, she looked pale, so tired, she says, her voice concerned, her eyes on Jack, her worry for Tien evident. Jack's brow furrows. She sounded exhausted on the phone too, he says, his voice heavy, his hands clenching, the village's silence amplifying his concern. She's stubborn, always working, even while on medicine, Jack adds, his voice frustrated, his heart aching, the thought of her struggling alone a sharp pain. She nods. You should check on her. Bring her some medicine, cheer her up, she says, her voice firm, her eyes warm, her love for them both a quiet strength. Jack agrees. I'll go after we eat, I've missed her so much, he says, his voice soft, his eyes distant, the village's evening a quiet promise of reunion. The late afternoon light bathes Tien's garden as she and Dr. Fhuang sit on the porch, baskets of herbs around them, the air cool, the scent of Nzoa and bonbot lingering. Tien spreads a bamboo tray on the ground. I've swept the yard, it's ready for drying, she says, her voice steady, her hands busy sorting the herbs. Fhuang nods. You've done well, it's clean, she says, her voice warm, pulling out a smaller tray. From the kitchen, her hands steady, her focus on the task. Tien glances at her. I've prepared everything for our trip. Glad we got so much, she says, her voice soft, her hands cutting the Nzoa stems, her movements precise. Fhuang smiles. These are the essentials for forest trips, you did great, she says, her voice encouraging, chopping the bonbot leaves, the pile growing on the mat. They work in tandem, the herbs spread out to dry, the afternoon breeze gentle. The village's silence a quiet backdrop. Their shared labor a moment of peace. Tien cuts a stem. How long do these need to dry? She asks, her voice curious, her hands steady. The Nzoa's rough texture familiar now, her basket emptying. Fhuang replies, with good sun 2 to 3 days, but if it rains it's tricky, she says, her voice factual, spreading the leaves thinly, her hands meticulous. Tien nods. It was sunny when we were in the forest, but now it's cooling down, she says, her voice thoughtful, the breeze picking up, the herbs rustling softly. Fhuang agrees. The north wind will help, they'll dry fine, she says, her voice reassuring, though her eyes flicker to her low-say herb dryer, broken and unused. My dryer's still broken. I've called a repairman, but it's not fixed yet, Fhuang says, her voice frustrated, her hands pausing, the herbs spread out before them. Tien smiles. You can dry them here, my yard's wide, plenty of sun, she says, her voice warm, offering her space. The village is quiet, a gentle hum around them. Fhuang nods. Thank you, Tien, I'll bring more next time, she says, her voice grateful, her hands moving again. The herbs a testament to their morning's work. They separate the stems. These will take longer, 2 days for the leaves, more for the stems. Fong says, her voice focused, her hands deft, the trays filling up. Tien glances at her. We didn't get as much this time, the dry season's tough, she says, her voice tinged with regret. The forest scarcity a quiet challenge. Fong nods. Last time was better, but we'll make do, she says, her voice steady, her hands finishing the last of the bon-bot. The trays ready for the sun. Her phone rings, breaking the silence. Fong answers. Allo, what's wrong at the clinic? She says, her voice sharp, her body tensing, her hands stilling. Tien looks up. Everything okay? She asks, her voice concerned. Her hands pausing, the herbs forgotten. The village's quiet suddenly heavier, more ominous. Fong stands. There's an emergency, I need to go, she says, her voice urgent. Gathering her things, her basket still half full, her focus shifting. Tien nods. I'll finish drying these, go be careful, she says, her voice supportive, standing to help. The herbs spread out, the yard a patchwork of green. Fong smiles faintly. Thanks, Tien, visit me soon, she says, her voice rushed, hurrying down the path. The village's silence swallowing her steps, her duty calling. The evening sun dips low as Seo Jack arrives at Tien's home. The air cool, the scent of her garden mingling with the faint cluck of chickens, the village quiet. Tien steps out, her eyes widening. Jack, you're back, she exclaims, her voice a mix of joy and surprise, her hands trembling, her heart racing with emotion. Jack smiles. I wanted to surprise you, he says, his voice warm, stepping forward, his arms open, the gifts in his hands a promise of care, his longing clear. They embrace. I missed you so much. Tien whispers, her voice breaking, her arms tight around him, the weight of her days alone lifting, her heart swelling. Jack pulls back. I missed you too, I came straight here, he says, his voice soft, his eyes searching hers, noticing her paleness, his worry flickering. I brought you yen sao and some regional snacks, Jack says, his voice warm, handing her the gifts, his hands gentle. The village's silence a quiet backdrop to their reunion. Tien takes them. You didn't have to, but thank you, she says, her voice grateful, her eyes glistening, the gifts a symbol of his care, her heart touched. Jack notices her fatigue. You look tired, have you been working too hard? he asks, his voice concerned, his hands on her shoulders, his eyes searching hers. Tien shakes her head. Just the usual chicken's garden, she says, her voice soft, leading him to the backyard. The new chicken coop, a small point of pride. Look, I fixed a play area for the chickens, she says, her voice warm, pointing to the coop. The small chicks peeping, their feathers soft, the space newly fenced. Jack kneels. These chicks are adorable. Look at their fluffy feathers, he exclaims, his voice delighted, picking one up, its warmth a small joy, his smile wide. Tien nods. They're growing fast. I added more since you left, she says, her voice proud. Though her hands tremble slightly, her secret weighing on her. Jack glances at her. You did this alone? You should have waited, I'd have helped, he says, his voice concerned, setting the chick down, his eyes on her, his worry growing. Tien smiles. Dr. Fwang helped, it wasn't too hard, she says, her voice reassuring, leading him to the garden. The herbs drying on trays, the air fragrant. These are herbs I gathered with Fwang today. And Zoa Bon Bot Ke Suang Kop, she says, her voice thoughtful, pointing to the trays, the leaves spread out to dry. Jack nods. You've learned a lot, I'm impressed, he says, his voice warm, his eyes bright. The garden a testament to her resilience, his admiration clear. Tien glances at him. Fwang taught me their uses. Some help with snake bites, others with joints, she says, her voice soft, her hands brushing a leaf, her thoughts distant. Jack smiles. You sound like a healer already, he says, his voice teasing, though his eyes are serious, his belief in her a quiet strength. His support unwavering. She laughs softly. Maybe one day, I'd like to help people like Fwang does, she says, her voice hopeful, her hands steady now, her dream taking shape. Jack nods. I'll support you. Maybe get you books on folk medicine, he says, his voice firm, his hand on hers. The villages quiet, a gentle hum around them. Tien's eyes light up. You do that? She asks, her voice soft, her heart swelling, the possibility of a new path, a quiet hope, her gratitude deep. Jack smiles, always. I'll be by your side, he says, his voice warm, leading her back to the house. The evening light fading, the air cool, their bond stronger. They sit at a small table. I didn't know you'd come, so it's just simple food, Tien says, her voice apologetic, setting out rice and greens, her hand steady. Jack takes a bite. It's delicious. Better than anything I had on my trip, he says, his voice warm, the meal a shared moment. The village's silence a quiet comfort. Tien smiles. I'm glad you're here, she says, her voice soft, her heart full. The Thursday still untested. Her hope for their future a quiet flame in the night.
And began gathering an armload of bricks for rebuilding. In total, Oma and Opa rebuilt the store 7 different times. With this in mind, I prepared myself for another boom story. Instead, my mother talked through one morning after a holiday. Oma and Opa opened the store to discover that every pair of shoes had been stolen. To add insult to injury, the thief turned out to be their business partner, who would let them with nothing but unpaid bills and left with a sample shoe. As my mother